Welcome back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast, where we share games. I'm your host, Zack.
And I'm your host, Tyler. And this is what the podcast is all about. Last year, 2020, actually, I got to share one of my absolute favorites with you, being Transistor. I was just thinking about that today. Transistor. Love Transistor so much. I think I finished it 6 times, and just next time I'm on a little trip, I can finish it in like 2.5 hours. It's great. It's great. One of my favorites.
Shared Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh yeah, that was number one. Alas, the lost episode. We started out the gate 2 of my favorites with Shadow of the Colossus and What Remains of Edith Finch. But we were amateurs. We're still amateurs. I understand that, but big time amateurs then, and we corrupted both the video and the audio. Wow.
Yeah, we're really good.
Yeah, so that's why our podcast starts with episode 2. But here we are, 2 years into this almost, and sharing some of your favorite games of all time, the Metal Gear Solid series.
Finally. I'm so excited for you.
Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. But we're also here to, I guess, not share beer. Zack is observing Lent this season, as he will be every season, but this year he has given up alcohol, among several other things. So it'll just be me today.
Yeah, but this is one I've had before. It's one of my personal favorites from Austin.
Yeah, and we probably featured it on the cast last year as well.
Well, not the double.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
the double Dapper Devil.
The Dapper Devil has declined, and it's good, but like this double has still maintained quite its.
Sour raspberry Belgian strong ale.
At 12.2%.
I was gonna look for that. 12.2.
Yeah, it's.
Dude, I'm surprised how many sours are just loaded. I think I've got a like 12.8 or something in the closet, and a 14%.
That's what I'm talking about.
That is crazy.
Playing with the big boys now, as they say in Prince of Egypt.
Don't get me started. Don't do this, Zach. We're here to talk about your favorite thing.
Song has been stuck in my head since
it should be
8. Like it's just,
dude.
It's so good.
I hope we're friends. Like those two are friends. Martin Short and what's his name? Steve
Martin.
Steve Martin. Martin Short and Steve Martin. They're just best buds. Always have been.
Yeah.
And just getting to do that role must have been so much fun. Those roles, I mean. What a good movie. I'm not going to talk about it. I won't do it.
Yeah, we got to talk about Metal Gear. So what do you think about the
best animated movie, guys? Go watch it. It's up there. Maybe not best, but it's way up there.
It's very up there. How's the beer?
Oh, pretty good. I am surprised. I've said this before about several various alcohols. It's dangerous. 12%. This is so smooth, and you just don't get the alcohol. Like, dude, I've had stouts that are less in volume than this. I had a 6% stout. Might as well be a lager at that point.
That's interesting. Yeah, I definitely enjoy it.
It's very good though.
Yeah, I like it quite a bit. Without that extra weight, I think it kind of loses the like it's just too tart, too raspberry-y. And with that extra weight, it really comes into its own.
Interesting observation. I agree with what you're saying. I wouldn't have made that connection, but I definitely agree. It does add, takes away, and in turn adds to the drink.
Yes. So, Tyler, what were your expectations for both of these games?
I expected a little more than I initially got. I thought 1 was going to hold up much more than it did, and I thought 2 was going to be a huge evolution on it. Neither of those two things are true. Something about we'll get to Metal Gear Solid 2. We will definitely get to it, but in terms of gameplay, I don't think it's a huge evolution. But I did anticipate enjoying the first one more than I did, and that it was going to hold up more.
Yeah.
I didn't, unfortunately. I'll start that.
One game.
Yeah, it's really hard to play. It's hard to get people to understand how difficult it is to play old games, like people that don't play video games.
Yeah.
Katie was just talking to me about how bad I am at finishing video games the other day, and I'm trying to explain these are 20 and 25 years old.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know how to explain it. You know,
Yeah,
you
it's
can make
hard.
some really outlandish analogy like reading a book by having to turn actual stone tablets. It doesn't really hold up. It's silly, but it's such a labor to play
And it's
many
so
old
much
games.
exponentially more so in video games because of how interactive they are. And I will say, it is hard to find, unless you're playing a JRPG, it is hard to find a game that holds up as well as the first Metal Gear Solid does in terms of presentation, in terms of your investment in it, and even the gameplay itself. It's very difficult to find a game that's not just a menu game. That
I
holds
will
up.
agree. I was shocked at how well paced this game is.
It's incredible.
Now, I didn't finish it. I will say I did not finish Metal Gear Solid 1. I watched a synopsis on it when I realized it's taking me too long. I need to get to Metal Gear Solid 2. And then I didn't finish Metal Gear Solid 2 either. A
Basically,
time distortion occurred. So I had to watch it. I watched a very good playthrough. We'll link it in the description. Shout out to whoever you are. Thank you for that playthrough.
Yeah.
But the game, let's see if this can make sense to anybody. The game is estimated to be about 13 hours long. The playthrough, an expert playthrough, there were some deaths in there, but generally a very solid playthrough, came in at 8 hours, 7 hours and 50 minutes. All right. So that's the expectation. 13, good, really professional gameplay, 8 hours. I had close to 13 hours in it. And the point I was in my playthrough was not even 3 hours into this guy's video.
Incredible.
So I probably, at the rate I was going, had like 25 hours more to go. That was not feasible, unfortunately. So I ended up watching it, and I'll talk about why, but I appreciate more that I did that. I enjoyed it much more by watching it, which is not the case. I have never watched a video game, actually. I just don't like it. But these games really lend themselves to watching like a movie, because even in Metal Gear Solid 2, you got like a 40-minute cutscene in there.
Dude, the whole ending sequence is so long. But yeah, that's a good set of expectations. That's interesting. I'm going to, just for the sake of interest, I'm going to go through my current ranking of the Metal Gear games, having played through each of them once. And we'll be able to compare this later on into this series. But right now, obviously, anyone who listens to me for more than 3 seconds knows my favorite is Metal Gear Solid 5. It's my favorite game, so of course it's my favorite Metal Gear game. I also include Ground Zeroes in that. I think they're one package.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah. Of course.
And the next one's Metal Gear Solid 3. That's the darling, typically, is 3. And I love it. It's absolutely incredible. I think the gameplay from 5... I'm more of a gameplay guy, and typically anyway, when it comes to video games. And then even the story moments that are there just really hit home. But yeah, 3's incredible. I tear up like every good man at the end of that game. So good.
All right.
So good. Then Metal Gear Solid 2. Again, primarily for the story. This is the one I expect to change. Because then I put Metal Gear Solid 4. I think playing them again, 4 is going to go up. Because I was wrapped up in kind of all the plot and crazy stuff the first time I played through. 4 is really... It's a lot. It's a lot. But the gameplay that's there, and like watching playthroughs since, and reading up on like just how deep these mechanics are in 4, I'm really excited to start digging more into that. So I think 4 and 2 are going to swap. And then it's Metal Gear Solid 1. And then everyone can turn your pitchforks, Peace Walker, which we're not going to play on our playthrough. But Peace Walker, I think it's because I played it on PS3. I didn't even finish Peace Walker. Like, I really did not like that game. A lot of what was done there went into 5. I don't know. Peace Walker's rough. And I think if I were to play it portably and just kind of, boot it up when I want to play a little bit, I bet I'd enjoy it a lot more.
And it's intended to be a portable game, right?
It is.
It was on
a
PSP?
portable game. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. It was the PSP game.
Was it ever remastered for Vita, or just you can download it digitally?
You just download the PSP version.
Yeah.
So that's my current ranking of the games. The only ones I expect to change are 4 and 2. I'm pretty sure it's going to stay static otherwise.
Okay. For me, obviously I've only played 1 and 2 now. I didn't finish 1. I wish I knew how much of an upgrade the what is it, Twin Snakes? Yeah, it was. I probably would have purchased that on GameCube. What is it, like $80 now?
Yeah, I think it's almost 100. Yeah, it's a lot.
I probably would have picked it up for the sake of the cast and the sake of the collection, the library.
I mean, it's just the MGS2 engine on MGS1, so it breaks a few things from what I understand. But
yeah, and
I really want to play it myself.
The cutscenes are great.
Yeah, totally redone.
I know that some of the community doesn't like that, but some of them that I saw even make more sense.
Yeah.
Just because we'll talk about limitations, but spoilers throughout.
Oh yeah,
all these games. Old. Yeah, old games like
Metal
this.
Gear, just play them. You can get 1 and 2 on PC. They're not the best ports, but you can play them there. You can play them on PS3. Play these games. Even just give them a try. They're 1 and 2, while definitely the ones that show their age the most, obviously. They're worth playing. Like you'll get something out of playing these games. I promise.
Okay. 2 is probably going to be pretty hard to top for me for a few reasons, even though I did not like the gameplay very much. If I ever play it again, it'll be on Vita. I think the gameplay is really facilitates a handheld. I anticipate it feeling really nice on the Vita. I understand it at the time it was a big console game, but we've moved so far on. People are playing The Witcher 3 on the Switch Lite these days. So it's just a different time and place now. I'd play it on the Vita, and since there's so many cutscenes, just being able to crawl in bed with it or something, it would be nice.
Yeah.
But when it finally hit, 2 really, really hit.
Yeah, it does.
But go ahead and take it away with Metal Gear Solid 1.
Yeah, so some context and legacy here. Metal Gear Solid 1 is technically the 3rd game in this series. Kojima was developing Metal Gear. He developed Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2 for the MSX. Very old games. I've tried to play the first one. It's very, if Metal Gear Solid 1 is rough to play, Metal Gear that's insanity. So thank you for people who have finished it, that I can tell me how it is.
That's not always the case. Old 3D games have aged way worse than
this plays
NES
in the same
2.
way though as Metal Gear Solid 1. You
Okay.
can tell Metal Gear Solid 1 is what he wanted those games to be. He even reuses bosses and story moments while still making it a sequel.
Okay.
Because he wants to deliver those on that new hardware. The only reason he kept developing Metal Gear at all, the only reason he came back is because he saw the tech demo for the PS1 or something about the PSX, and he was like, okay, I can make what I want to make now. And he did. And it took the world by storm.
Indeed.
This was the big breakout in the West for him. It was so cinematic. Games didn't look like this, where, you press up against a wall and the camera pans down and pushes up, and, you can kind of see, and the guy's coming around looking for you.
Yeah.
That
certainly not on console. You may have gotten some of that in like Thief or Deus Ex, but on console, absolutely not.
And it was the use of the camera and the presentation, and the opening just delivers everything. I could not imagine being of that age and playing this for the first time. It's held up. People still, like, if you go on the subreddit, you go on any Metal Gear community, everyone's like, hey, where do I get started? Play Metal Gear Solid 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then Peace Walker, then 5. Everybody. Like, it's almost universal. Very few people say, oh, just, 5's the best gameplay, just play that. If that's all you want, you just want a really good game, sure, play 5. But, like, if you want to play Metal Gear, they're all like, no, from beginning to end, do it.
Yeah.
And not even for the story necessarily, just because each one has so much to offer. This game is still lauded as one of the best PlayStation games of all time.
Yeah.
It really did a number for stealth. This was the year of stealth. Thief, Metal Gear Solid. There's another big one.
Was Thief the same year?
Same year, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, you had your big first-person stealth, your big, kind of... I guess top down isometric ish, depending on what part of the game you're in. Metal Gear, and there's one other game as well. Was it Tenchu Assassin?
I couldn't tell you.
I don't know. Anyway, big year for stealth, and it really brought all this into its own. So, I'm obviously a huge fan, but it matters. This game is a huge deal in terms of what games ended up doing afterwards, from the cinematic approach, from the way he handled details, the way he made use of the hardware. It really was defining. So many people remember playing certain moments of this game for the first time as their big gaming moment.
Yeah. I was not anticipating the level of cinematics. I don't mean the level of cutscenes, but how cinematic the game was. Obviously, like PS1, this game's incredible for a PS1 game, especially the PlayStation 1 in that era. That those games typically do not hold up well. The 64 was much better at 3D because the PlayStation was targeting photorealism in a time where that was laughable. Like, I don't even know why you were trying that at the time.
Yeah.
But then you get something like Mario and Zelda. Those look incredible even today. Going back to play, not just the visuals, but the gameplay that the visuals facilitate as well were just better suited for the time.
Absolutely.
So pretty much any Nintendo game is going to hold up way better than pretty much any PlayStation game, 3D game that is. And I just wasn't expecting the confidence. That's what it was, the confidence that really took me by surprise, because I was misremembering, I guess. I remembered Dead Space being one of the first games I saw where it was seamless cutscene to gameplay. And it's not totally seamless here, but there are not any pre-rendered cutscenes. Yeah. It's all happening in-engine, in real time, and with the game models. Like, it doesn't sort of, dress them up for the sake of the cutscene. It's just straight up the game models, and it does it pretty well. Of course, it's old. You get weird face textures, just on a
the little
flat
jittering
box
of their face as they talk, as if they're some sort of demon possessed girl from a horror movie.
It's a little weird, but the confidence is what really got me.
That's a good point. I like the way you phrase that. I hadn't thought of that before. So I guess that kind of talks a little about your first impressions. Are there any other kind of big first impressions you got playing this game?
I wasn't really, well, as I mentioned before, I was anticipating liking it a little more.
Sure.
I wasn't, I don't know why I wasn't, because it's an old game. I should expect this, but I wasn't expecting it to be so unforgiving.
It's rough. Yeah. It's a tough game.
And I played them both on easy. Even on easy for Metal Gear Solid 2. I'm like close to 13 hours in and barely scratched the surface.
I will say this, the first time I played a Metal Gear game, it was this game, and it was after the torture sequence in particular, where I was like, this game is just built a little different. And I'm not saying that to kind of go, look how
you built different, bro. How you built different?
I'm not saying that to try to identify, oh, look how much of a genius Kojima is, or look at this. I'm not even going there. I'm just saying this is a game that the DNA is a little bit different than other games, and even other stealth games. Because you can play something like Hitman, which is it's a stealth game, and it just doesn't quite play like these games. They have a different philosophy to them. They're asking you to think differently and to think a lot more than some of these other games. There aren't just, this is your mechanic that makes you hide, this is your mechanic that makes you do this. It's not like that. It's like, hey, you picked up this thing. It could do anything. There's a part later in the game where you pick up something and it's it just says bomb, and you're like, oh, is it cool? I got a bomb. I wonder what that does. And then 30 seconds later, you die. You blow up because you picked up a ticking time bomb. And you should have looked at, he's expecting you to pay attention. What did I get? He wants you to look at it. That's the first thing I have listed here.
It's just paying attention.
Yeah, pay attention. He's asking you, because if you are kind of, punished in that way or pushed in that way, either of those, it invests you more in what's going on. I have it listed here. Kojima wanted it to breathe. You forget where the mines. So there's a part in the game where, like your mine detector isn't working, and Meryl's like, "Oh, I know where the mines are," and so she walks, and her little footprints are left behind in the rainwater, and you can see where her footprints are, and you can follow her. So you follow her through, and like that was easy, that's stupid. Well, then she gets shot by a sniper, and you're like, "Oh crap!" And like she's like bleeding out on the ground, and Snake's like, "Meryl," like and the Colonel's like, "Snake, what's going on? What's wrong with my niece?" Like he's freaking out. And you're going through all this stuff. And then, it's an intense scene, and the sniper's there, and Snake is like, "Where's a sniper rifle? I need to get a sniper rifle. She's too far away." And you have to go all the way back to grab a sniper. Like, it makes you backtrack to the old warehouse to go get it. And then you realize, crap, I forgot where the mines are, because her footprints have faded. So he's gotten you invested into this moment, and you've totally forgotten the path through the mines. He wants you to be paying attention. And he has the details there to earn that. When you're fighting the cyborg ninja, the glass is breaking as you're fighting. You're not watching a movie, but it feels like it. You feel like, oh yeah, crashing through the glass, fighting the ninja. Like, yeah, everyone always says the footprints. Your footprints can be followed by the guards in those first areas. Like the details.
Oh, dude, I would again not expecting this. It's so simple, wildly simple, but just knocking on a corner to distract the guard. It's awesome.
Yeah, and he just tap tap.
Yeah,
like, it's so good.
So good.
Huh? What's that?
They're so dumb. They're like stupid dogs.
And they're supposed to be like the top of the line genetically engineered soldiers.
Whose footprints are these?
Huh? It's really satisfying.
Well, where they lack in brains, they make up for in just this inexplicable ability to spawn off screen endlessly.
Oh yeah,
that's rough,
insanity.
Man. It's so rough.
Yeah.
You think you've cleared 5 out of the 7 guys in a room, and one of the last 2 catches you, and suddenly there are 9.
Like 9 of them.
It's just I didn't appreciate that at all.
Yeah, and
I wish the encounter itself, taking out each guard, would have been more difficult and not just spawn guards.
Yeah, and I think the logic there comes from the limitation, because as you progress in the games, you are able to take more people out, to trick people, to to really make use of all of the stuff at your disposal. In the first 2 games in particular, and honestly, the DNA is still there in the later games, it sometimes just wants you to get through the area. Like sometimes there's doesn't even want you to take out guards, just literally move through them, get your box on, find a couple ways through them. And that helps a lot. That helps open the game up a lot, because you realize that's what it's going for. And, you start really getting through these areas, knocking and just running around it, intentionally clacking on the really loud surfaces so they'll come and investigate.
Yeah. I didn't do this, but in the second game was the item switching silent walk still a thing?
Wait, what?
So in the first game, when you switch items, when you press R1 to unequip and re-equip your item, your weapon, you skip a step. So while you're running, if you just keep switching weapons, you're silent the whole time. You can just walk on anything.
Way. I had no idea.
I don't know if that's in the second game, though.
That's crazy.
That's been taken out.
I know that what's nice in the second game is when you unequip and re-equip your weapon, it's fully reloaded.
That's nice. I didn't notice that.
Tactical reload. I read the manual. They have, thank God they do. The games on the Legacy Collection for PS3 have the manuals digitally right there.
Too bad.
In game. Yeah.
It's
not like
digital manuals.
There's actually you have to go to some menu in the PS3. It's literally right there as an option, and you read through it, and there are mechanics I had no idea about. I was like, what? You can do what? You can do pull-ups in Metal Gear Solid 2 to increase how long you can hold. It'll expend your energy right now, but it'll upgrade your ability to hang from ledges because you're sitting there doing pull-ups.
That's silly.
Isn't that great?
That's very silly. Too bad we're not doing the videos anymore. The fully recorded videos, because you got a bunch of Metal Gear Solid swag.
Oh yeah,
you got 7 different copies of Metal Gear Solid 3, including the inexplicable 3DS version.
Yes.
Please just play it on 3DS, bro.
I really want if
And Metal Gear Solid 5, play it on PS3.
If it was the subsistence version of on 3DS, I'd be much more inclined to.
Well, that might actually be more interesting because just like I said, I think the gameplay facilitates handheld play pretty well, and I want to play 2 on the Vita. That might be an interesting way to replay 3.
Sure.
Now that you already have the context of the subsistence version. But if you're not going to play Metal Gear Solid 5 on PS3, so I know that sounds insane, but Zack has a tendency to play the worst version of games.
I do like
and just deal with it.
Of games.
I always go back to him playing Prince of Persia 2008, where the disc was like basically corrupted. Colors were off, the balancing was off, and we tried a few different things, and finally just brought my own disc over. And
worked like a charm.
Yeah, I think I've got 3 copies on PS2 and 1 on Xbox. Anyhow, yeah, worked like a charm. But he played through it. It was like sub 15 frames at some points. But he just put up with it.
I thought that was what the game was. And
I kept telling you, no, dude.
I was like, oh, well,
anyway, so for that reason, I want him to play Metal Gear Solid 5 on the PS3.
That's my favorite game.
What if you just buy Ground Zeroes on PS3?
Yeah, okay, I can do that. Yeah, let's do it.
Just that, just a little chunk.
I
want to know what it's like.
Yeah, I can do that. I also just need to buy both of them on PS3 to have them because I want them.
Why?
Because I already own literally every possible way I can own them already.
You know what I don't own, and this is a shame. And if you're out there, listener, period, and you'd like to contribute to the growing library of nearly 1,000 games that I do send out to close friends. If you're on the Discord, actually, and you want to play something, I'm going to let you play it, man. I love sharing. That's what the podcast is about. But anyway, if you want to contribute to the library, I still do not own Oddworld 1 and 2 on Game Boy.
Why?
I don't know.
Fix that.
I have Munch's Odyssey on the Game Boy Advance. Don't.
Just don't.
It's not... I mean, Munch's Odyssey is not good, but the Game Boy Advance version, definitely not.
That's the version I'll play.
Moving on, anyway.
Really quick, just to come back to the pay attention thing. The culmination of this is the torture sequence. So it's after that Meryl sequence, you've just backtracked to get the sniper rifle, done a quick sniper battle with Sniper Wolf, sniper, and you move over to continue through the area, and you get ambushed, knocked out, and strapped to a torture chair, right? And so now you have to hammer on the X button as fast as you can to keep your health up as you're tortured. And depending on the level of difficulty you've chosen in the game, it will determine how many times you have to survive this. And it's difficult. I'm pretty good at button mashing. Not as good as you, but I'm pretty good without doing some sort of cheat method. Like just genuine just button mashing. I barely make it. I intentionally failed this time because it changes the ending.
Okay.
So like the first time I succeeded, so I intentionally failed. But I wanted to see if I could do it again. And I could barely do it. Like, it's really... And that's not even on hard mode. We have to do it another time. So you have to just hammer on the X button as fast as you can. So what's amazing about this part is, hey, if you can, if you give in, then I get to have... Also, then I'll do what I want with the girl, Meryl. And if not, then you win this little, bargain that you have. And... for a player, you're like, oh, whatever. Like, it's the game. It's not my fault. But then they're like, I don't care. Like, it's Meryl dying. Like, sure, it's a video game, whatever. But then he's like, by the way, if you lose, it's game over. And he's like, wait, so what you're talking about is like, you'll have to go back to your last save. Like, he says it. He's like, you have to go back to your last save. And you've just been through this super emotional, high octane backtracking section. Like, oh, I've been through here. It's fine. Like, I'll just
go back to your last save, don't you? But the event has already happened.
Right?
No. Oh,
no. It's literally...
I didn't get that far, obviously.
It literally dumps you back. So, like, the first time I played the game, I had not saved since Meryl had gotten shot.
Bro, you're so bad at saving.
No. I saved... in that game, I saved consistently, but because it was backtracking, I was like, oh, I've been here. It's like, psychologically. It's like, oh, I've been here. I've done this. Like, it's fine. So you go back and you come back, you do the sniper battle, and you just move on. And there you go. Like, it happens at just the right time, basically. So if you're not saving consistently, there you go. But that's his way of keeping the player engaged at the same level of the story player's engagement. Like that's terrible of saying it. The character's engagement, right? He's trying to keep the player as aligned as he can with the motivations of the characters. He does a really good job, I'd argue. Like, so many little touches. He does a fantastic job. So,
I agree. Just in the, probably a third of the game that I played, I definitely experienced that as well. And then I, watched synopsis of the rest of MGS1. But I mentioned something earlier that does segue pretty nice into the next point, which is sound design. Ooh. This game is so just clicking through your items.
Oh,
it feels so good. Switching the little clicks. Every game has most games. Some games do not. Most games have menu noises to let you know that you have made an input. There are some games that inexplicably do not.
Yeah.
Don't do that. But anyway.
It'd be like watching a ball drop in the water and no ripples happening. It's like, well, reality just shattered. Why is there no menu sound?
Pretty much. But even the menu sounds sound great. And, dude, we like to keep track of silly things during our gameplay, or, during our year.
Yeah.
And one of them is just the best sound. Like last year, it was one of them was the unpacking box folding up and poofing out of existence.
Yeah.
Starting a codec call is I'm not nostalgic towards this, but it just, there's some things, and I don't know what this is. I do think, I'm going to get weird here, but I do think it's some mystical meme in the old use of the word. There are things that just enter into the collective conscience without you even knowing it. Prime example, I have seen, what is it? The dinosaur movie, Jurassic Park.
The
Stupid idiot. Movie. The dinosaur movie. Twice. Okay? Twice. Once when I was a kid, and then I watched it, I think 2 years ago with Katie again. So no nostalgia for the movie, really. I like dinosaurs as a kid. Sure, I was a young boy.
Dinosaurs now.
Of course.
Dinosaurs are awesome.
Correct.
What's that? I watched something recently. He's like, what? Why can't I remember what this was from? I watched it, and the guy's like, oh yeah, it was The Office, a clip from The Office, and Jim's like, yeah, Dwight. Well, I remember a really good birthday. My dad took me to the museum. I got to see all the dinosaur bones, and he bought me a Triceratops toy before I left. And Dwight's like, Triceratops is the worst dinosaur. Why did he buy you a Triceratops? Anyway.
So, of course I know the song. Everybody knows the song. It's one of those things that is just part of pop culture. But I was overtaken with very emotional nostalgia when they, Laura Dern and Sam Neill, is that his name?
Yep.
Saw the dinosaurs
Possession
for the first time. Correct. I know him from Possession. It's like a minute and a half. It's just staring at their faces.
Oh, it's so good.
I'm crying.
Yeah.
Because they're seeing a dinosaur for the first time. And I had not even seen the dinosaur yet. Yeah. It's just the music
and you believe
the emotions.
It.
You believe it. But the weight of that movie is sort of out there. It's just in the universe.
It's fair, yeah.
Anyway, I say all that to say, that sound, I was like, oh, I am taken back to my childhood, in which I have never played this game. There's just some things that I feel nostalgia for, even though it's not my nostalgia. It's part of the universe now.
And you mentioned good sound design. You gotta talk about how you can hear enemies approaching, from a certain way, or them getting closer.
Yeah.
And this is a 1998 video game. That does not happen.
Still not. It does happen. Still not as good.
Yeah, it's
as Oddworld.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, it's good, but it really doesn't happen very much.
It doesn't. But the sound design in Oddworld, specifically, the enemy, knowing how far they are in the other screen and which other screen they're on,
Yeah,
that's impeccable.
it's really good.
So great sound design here. And again, the knocking. Just love it.
Tick, tick.
Now, the voice acting.
Oof.
What a silly B movie this is.
Yeah, and I will say there's like the occasional voice acting that's genuinely bad, like that is genuinely not good. Like I think Naomi's voice acting is really.
Is that
the Gene professor lady that calls and talks to you?
Yeah, what's her name? Femshep. I forget her name. That's her, right?
Yeah, but she's not directed well, I don't think.
Okay.
In this, like, because I think that's her. I think it's Femshep because she's great.
And also Rivet.
Yeah, she's fantastic. I think her direction
In the game was not very good.
was not very good. Like her accent's weird. Like nothing really fits. I've heard arguments for why it is that way, and whatever. I disagree. My favorite voice actor in this game is the guy who plays Liquid Snake because
of course
he's the guy in the B movie who has some clout but is still a B movie actor, but he's like a well-known B movie actor who the second he's on screen just absorbs all the energy. And like it's like a blazing sun. Everything is focused on him. And it's,
like Michael Vincent, whoever that guy is.
Yeah, exactly.
Better Michael down your Vincents.
Hello, brother. Like everything. I always say, I don't know why this one was. I had the recessive genes. Like it's just, like he's just obviously enjoying himself so much.
I do think David Hayter. Is that his name?
Yeah, it's Snake. Solid Snake.
I do think he's not very good in this game. It's obviously the first time in the role, but really in the second game, he realizes some of the cheesy stuff that was in the first game and owns it, but also is able to wield it.
Yeah,
in the second game. In the first
fair.
game, though, it's just pretty bad.
It's. I wouldn't say bad. I think it's bad when he does some of the more serious lines. But, like, I think when he's just talking, like, on the codec, I think he's fine.
Yeah, okay, I'll agree.
Or
like when he's talking to,
like, the intro
name?
videos where he's talking about, like, where they just pulled him from Alaska and, like, he's doing all that stuff. I think that's good.
Who's Mei Ling, is that her name?
Yeah, Mei Ling, you're safe. You're safe.
What a good choice.
And she's got the little, like, proverbs that she gives you.
Yeah, the proverbs.
Oh,
and then, we'll get to the second game. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's so funny. But I love, too, one of the things that really landed for me in terms of, I guess, just the overall acting in the second game that really, like, solidified that Hater knows what's going on now is when they're talking about what to do with the bombs. He's like, all right, Semper Fi. And he just, like, leaves. Like, he just doesn't even care. He's like, all right, yeah, good job, guys, Semper Fi. And it's just...
Wait, that was in the second game, right?
Yeah, the second game, yeah. It's just it really shows him coming into his own. He's got a lot more cheek too in the second game, which is nice. Anyway, so yeah, that's I agree. I think it's a good take. To kind of wrap up a couple of the I guess points that I want to make about this game. Another thing that really holds up, and I mean honestly is just exemplary, is the level design. Especially in those first handful of areas, you first swim in and it gives you a couple guards walking around with giant crates to hide behind and maneuver around. It's very obvious, what to do. You press up and look, and it's very obvious. And you see your goal. You saw a little cutscene of the guy going up the elevator. You see your goal, and there's some puddles, and you realize, oh, I make sound when I go in the puddles, and guards are coming. It's really showing you kind of the way the game works. And then you hit that elevator button. And, your video game brain is like, okay, it's going to take me up the elevator now. It's like, oh, no, it's going to make you wait for this elevator. And you have to go hide. And that happens with every elevator. Like, you can't just, hop in the elevator. So, it's kind of teaching you to have an exit plan and, be in charge of the situation. And then you come up on that snowy entrance to the base. And... the presentation, the way the guards are set, the big spotlights, the cameras.
Such a good opening area.
the one of the best of all time, I'd argue. Like, it is so clean. You know exactly what to do, how to do it. You can play around.
And of course, it just makes so much sense. I didn't do this until I started playing again. I did pick it up on the Vita because I was playing it on PS3. But I played it again on the Vita just to see how it controls. It's fantastic. The preferred way to play, I think. But anyway, I already knew how to play a bit. And I didn't do this before, but I went into the truck. Of course, there's a gun in the truck. That just makes sense. That's like a little armory.
It's crazy how many people get that on their first playthrough. It feels like something that you'd miss because you can't see it. It's not.
It's kind of my second.
Sure, but like it's amazing how many people do catch it and get it.
Yeah,
and find, like it's a fun little area to explore. I could break down why all day. There's a million videos about how good this opening area is. But even when you go further in, the placement of the guards, it's more of a puzzle than a stealth game in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like every area.
I didn't realize until my sixth time through that area that it only makes sense. I didn't see somebody do this. I just tried it. I was like, everything else in this game seems to make at least a degree of sense. So I sidled the wall and went under the camera. Duh.
Yeah.
It just works.
Just works.
It's very good.
It just works. Yeah, I agree. I think it's really, again, emblematic of how good the level design is in this game. And there's a couple different ways to handle it. And then, it becomes less of a puzzle game as they throw a little, gotcha in there. Oh, now we placed mines in this area. Or, oh, we changed the guards. Or there's no guards. What's here? It could be anything. As they kind of do that. And most of the bosses, too, are puzzle bosses. The Hind D is one that isn't. And then Vulcan Raven isn't really a puzzle boss. But, and then the ending bosses. But really there's... over half the bosses in the game feel more like puzzle bosses. How can you beat them? What tool can you use? And then once you find that tool, they're pretty easy to take down.
Mm-hmm.
So... my favorite boss in the game is Vulcan Raven. In fact, the bosses themselves already stand out. Like everybody, anybody who's played the game could probably name most of the members of Foxhound. Like, even if it's been a while. You can probably pull out the names of all the members of Foxhound by memory. It's just, they stand out. They're very charismatic. They're fun to think about. And my favorite to fight is Vulcan Raven, because you're in this, it's kind of like that opening area where you have a bunch of crates to hide behind and block around, but a lot more, and they're a little smaller. And he is very fast, carrying a massive chain gun and he can see you across the entire room. So you have a lot of places to hide, but he can see you anytime he has line of sight, and he will shoot you and he will hurt you. So your goal, since you can't hit him face on, there's a couple different ways. The prescribed way is to use Nikita, and basically you try to get as far away from him as you can, shoot Nikita, and then try to hit him in the back. But you can also lay C4s and wait for him to walk over the C4s or mines, or there's a bunch of different ways to handle him. And he's pretty beefy, so you can kind of use all of them. It's even in a freezer container, kind of Mr. Freezy.
Interesting.
Not really,
but it's not Mr. Freeze.
No,
come on,
it's not. But I was just thinking that's odd. All the different ways. Anyway. You're not forced to do a different way after you do it, but it is a very good fight. The best in the first game for sure.
Also, this is a little more about the cinematics, not necessarily the level design. But in the first area, I could be wrong. I definitely could be wrong here, but I think I'm remembering it correctly. So there's a few ways into the facility.
Yeah.
There's I think 3. Maybe is there 3?
I only know of 2, but maybe there's 3.
Okay, maybe there's just 2. But there's one on the lower part and then one on the upper part. And if you go into the upper part, the camera is at very particular angles. And if you go into the bottom part and eventually make your way back out, you don't really realize you're in that area because it's presented, it's part of the opening level, but it's presented in a different way to make it feel like a new level. Just the top catwalk up there. I think you got 2 different ways of viewing it, depending on how you have entered the area. which I appreciate it. It was sort of one of those moments, certainly no Dark Souls coming down the elevator, but one of those moments where I was like, oh, this wraps around and it's really nice.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think
nothing is like that.
Nothing is like that. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Anyway, the last thing I kind of want to talk about is the bad. I've praised this game a lot. It's old. It has limitations and it has problems. The pacing is perfect.
It is. It really is.
Until the very end of the game.
Oh, yeah, I didn't get
until
that.
The very end of the game, where you basically you find Liquid and Ocelot, and you have a PAL card that you need to use to disarm the nuke. It really arms it. You're being tricked, obviously, but you have to use the PAL card. So you use the PAL card on one, but then you realize it's not 3 cards, it's 1 card, and you have to go back to a cold area to freeze the card to use it on the 2nd slot, then go back to a hot area to warm the card to put it in the 3rd slot. So you literally go all the way back this very long route to the freezer where you fought Vulcan Raven, all the way back, then all the way back out past the freezer up into the very first part of the disc 2, and then you go all the way back and put the key in.
That seems rough, man.
Yeah, in Twin Snakes, there's a way to bypass it. Actually, I don't know if it was intentionally put in there. I bet it was, but there's a way to bypass that whole crap.
Good. That seems really terrible.
Yeah, it's the worst. And then you fight the final boss, which is terrible. I think the fight against Metal Gear Rex is awful. A lot of RNG. You have to have, if you don't have a million chaff grenades, you are screwed. You're just screwed. Sorry.
Well, glad I didn't play it, because that all sounds like something that would have sent me over the edge.
Yeah, and then you have to fist fight Liquid, which, while not terrible, is repetitive and boring. For what should be a cinematic, awesome ending. And then the actual worst part of the whole game, you have to, with whoever you saved, drive out of the facility while Liquid is chasing you and shooting you. And you have to aim at him with the first person aim while trying to while aiming and while hitting the fire button. It is the worst. Period.
Sorry to hear that, man. That sounds like it really falls apart.
It does. I think the ending of this game is actual terrible, terrible video game. I hate all of it. From the PAL card on, it is a bad video game. Which is unfortunate, because everything else is fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. Let's real quick talk about story. We won't have as much to say about story as we will with 2, obviously. But one thing that stood out to me, and I wrote it this way, the myth of the bomb. Right? The atom bomb, the kind of romance of nuclear war in a capital R sense. And from a Western side, from someone in the U.S., we talk about the nuclear bomb with shame. With heads held low, with what a disgusting, horrible tragedy.
Some of us,
I just mean
myself included. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I don't want to say.
No, that's the
I love nuclear war.
You get from the media and the way that we've portrayed this event. You know what I mean? That's the general tone.
Yeah.
And media, I mean not news media. I'm talking about stories, right? Yeah. So from stories, that's the tone we get. It's very different. From a Japanese perspective, there's this, I wrote, mournful and divine fear. It's, and not I'm not talking being afraid. I mean this reverent, fear of God kind of stuff.
Interesting.
And it bleeds out of this game. This kind of the whole central myth of this game is this nuclear war and this escalation and the byproducts of all this nuclear waste and the detail he knows about nuclear weapons, and it's just
goes way more into that in the second game.
Yeah, even more. And it's hard to quantify, really, but you do get this sense of intimacy with this, and every game in the Metal Gear series addresses nuclear war. And it's not just this simple, look how bad nukes are. It's very much this escalating, mythical sci-fi thing where the center of all of it is this nuclear bomb. All the time, it's some new way of using a nuke or deploying the nuke. My favorite, actually, is in Peace Walker. It's literally an AI running a Metal Gear that is programmed to, the second a nuke is fired, blow up everybody on the Earth. So it's called Peace Walker because it keeps peace.
Crazy.
By making sure that no bomb is ever fired.
Interesting.
And so it just runs away. It can't be tracked. Like, it just hides and will eventually nuke the world if either... And the problem is the AI starts to want to just nuke everything, obviously.
Okay, so that's why you have to take it down?
There's a couple other reasons, but yeah, it's that's one of the primary reasons. But the idea of Peace Walker is... That's what I call my dev desktop at work. I call it Peace Walker because, like, if I mess up one thing from it...
A robot will run over a person?
Yeah, like, it will cause the entire network to go down. But, yeah, you know, he comes up with these really interesting ideas. And... I'm always impressed. I'm always impressed by the way he handles them because it's never this didactic, like, oh, and here's why you shouldn't use nukes and why it's bad. It's really unique. Yeah, I like his approach to it. Another thing I have here is the little touches. Little touches. One of my favorites was Mei Ling saying that engineers would be better off not making anything at all because it seems like everything we make gets used to hurt someone.
Interesting.
And so, like, we should just go back to living in the Stone Ages. Because what's the point if all we're going to do is keep using it and escalating violence? It's just like, whoo! Okay.
She's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I like her a lot. Snake's Huskies, obviously. Snake has 50 Huskies. And
What?
He runs in dog sled races.
What?
Yep.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, it's in the like briefing that you can access from the main menu, but he's like I need to get back to my 50 Huskies. He's like, you just gonna race dogs the rest of your life, Snake? Sounds like a pretty good life to me. Like, you know, he's great. He literally says my 50 Huskies. Like, it's incredible. And, you know, the implication at the end of the game is that's what he goes back to before they decided to make a sequel. It's like Sakurai with Smash Bros. Every Metal Gear was his last Metal Gear, you know?
Okay.
It's like everyone was supposed to be the final one. In his mind, actually, like, the way he talks about it, 2 was where he felt like he peaked. Like, the way he talks about it. It feels like 2 was
Well, I did say, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Seems like it's going to be really hard to top.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. Not from a gameplay standpoint, but from what it's doing.
Sure, it's going to be easy to top the gameplay.
What it's doing as a
like
video
it very
game,
much.
though, is going to be hard to top.
Yes.
I love my favorite line in Metal Gear Solid 1 is when, like, you can call Otacon when you start fighting Metal Gear Rex, and you're like, Otacon, what do I do? Like, it's Metal Gear. Like, I don't understand. And so he's like, oh, yeah, but if the jaw opens, there's actually squishy cockpit inside. He's like, you designed it with a weak point? And he's like, well, it's not a weak point exactly. Seems like a weak point to me. Like, he's very much hammering on, like, this is a video game, and this is the weak point of the enemy that you created. Like, it's incredible. You designed it with a weak point. It's incredible. Yeah, anyway, it's great. All the little touches really, really come together. And then, of course, genes. Just, you know, Kojima has a one-word descriptor for each of the Metal Gear games that he says all of them hinge on. And for this game, it's gene. Genes. And, you know, fate, essentially. It's about fate. And do our genes dictate who we are? And he makes a really... Like, if he's going to get didactic, here's where he makes a solid stance, right? At the end, Liquid, who believes he has the recessive genes, you find out he has the dominant genes, but he still loses to Solid Snake. Well, not necessarily. There's all these, you know, ways that he loses, but, like, he loses in the end. He dies, even though he had the dominant genes. So it was what he believed about himself that dictated his outcome. So, you know, it's just nice little touches there, and it works out well. It's the simplest theme of all the Metal Gear games, right? Because then, you know, 2's word is meme, obviously. 3 is scene. I forget 4. Peace Walker is peace. And then 5 is vengeance.
Well, I think it's about time to move on to Metal Gear Solid 2.
Let's do it.
What a game.
So let's talk context real quick. So the context of this game is, people were on a big high. This was 2002, one or two. I think it's 2002 when this game came out. And so that's, 4 years after Metal Gear Solid 1, which had a huge impact. Everybody loved it. And so all the advertisements, were just showing these massive action shots of a true PS2 modeled Snake. And he looks great, actually. Like, the models look really good in Metal Gear Solid 2. Especially for like kind of the colors they're going for. Like, it's really unique. But they look really good. And, it's all the massive ocean, water splashing up. And people are getting stoked for this game. Come to boot up the game, and you are not playing Solid Snake. Like, so you do for the first 2 hours. And then all of a sudden, you're not Solid Snake. This was not in any promotional material. It wasn't in the demos that they released.
Interesting.
It wasn't anywhere. Nobody knew until they played the game. And
interesting.
When it came out, it got negative reviews because of that. Like there were a bunch of positive ones, obviously, as well. But
sure,
like people and fans in particular were very upset. They're like, I don't want to play as this loser. Raiden.
Tired story.
Yeah.
Got plenty of that.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, that was what did it. And because of that context, you need it to really get what this game's going for, because it is in such
It's like
dialogue.
watching Fleabag. You have to have. It's not one of those situations where you just got to watch the first 2 seasons and then it gets good. No. The first season is obviously inferior, but you have to have it.
Yeah.
For the full context of season 2 of Fleabag.
It makes season 2 what it is, like, and in this case, yeah, it is so much in conversation with Metal Gear Solid itself, Kojima, marketing, and the modern digital age. Like, all these things, I mean, I have it here right at the end. It's a postmodern masterpiece. Like, it is doing...
It's something incredible.
It's crazy. So,
I love it so much by the end.
What were your first impressions?
First impressions. Obviously, it looked better. It played a decent amount better.
I think
but the gameplay is... It played exactly as better as I would have expected a sequel to be. I thought it was going to be different gameplay. I didn't know it was going to be the same gameplay. So it plays exactly what I would have expected it to play like if I knew it was going to be like this. Because I know with 3, as you've explained, specifically the subsistence release is when they go into third person. I thought they started that after Metal Gear Solid 1. Well, specifically with 2. So, first impressions, sure, it's a sequel. I don't really like this gameplay style. And that carried through up to the point where I skipped to that playthrough. I really liked, this double dapper devil is getting to me. I really liked the setting, and I really liked the sort of... You didn't grow up with 24, did you?
Not really, no.
Okay. Something kind of similar happens to Jack Bauer halfway through the series.
Well, Jack Bauer will play Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid 5. So.
Yes, except it wasn't Solid Snake.
No, you're right.
And I got some of this, grizzled veteran that still loves his country, believes in what it stands for, and will defend it sort of vibe. I liked it. I like the villain that was introduced. I like the whole thing. I did appreciate the setting of the first one. Really liked the relationship that I didn't really get to see unfold in the first one. I don't know if it really plays on Otacon and the relationship between Otacon and Solid Snake.
No, like nowhere near. Like, obviously, this is them having been doing being bros for a while now.
Yeah. So yeah. I liked that a lot.
Dude, the handshake. Every time
yes.
I die laughing.
Way later in the game, they have a handshake, and it is just priceless.
It's so good.
The whole scene is priceless. Yeah. Oh my God.
There's so much going on in that
So
scene.
much.
Dude, when the bird is like, how? Help!
Yeah, like it's just
Tormenting him.
heard her say his name over and over, and if you knew the context, if we were allowed to say it on this podcast, it would be very
We have
weird.
to talk about it. We have to.
We will. We will, yeah.
So my second impressions are I liked it more the second time. Because I knew where it was going. I caught so much more in this, in what he's going for. But let's real quick run through the easy stuff before we get into what the game's doing. I actually think the controls are fantastic. I think they feel really smooth, very fluid.
It's much better than the first. I'm just saying
The first person view is a little rough.
Appreciate the gameplay so much. I don't like it very much.
I like the stealth, interacting with the guards. I like the alert system a lot, where if you take out guards that you need to pay attention. Some of them radio back every once in a while, and if you take them out, more guards are going to come to investigate. But if you take out someone who's not calling back consistently, they're not going to come investigate. So you have to think about it, and you're going back through these areas all the time, but they're so well designed and fun to move through that I had a blast. I really got a lot out of this game, and I found a couple good hidey holes. When I got noticed, I'd run away and find them. Maybe leave a mine behind me or something. Just try to be sneaky. It's a little slippery, though. Trying to press up against a wall. Sometimes I'll latch off or run away.
You've got to switch to the D-pad when you're doing that.
Yeah, it's really rough. So it's slippery, but overall the controls I'd say even feel good by today's standards in some ways. And just being able to roll into a prone position and all these little touches that just really make a huge difference. Again, level design is fantastic. Each level is very carefully structured. There are multiple ways through it. Still kind of that puzzle design, but much more dynamic. And now guards being alerted isn't a game over force for you. It's okay, let's throw a wrench into your plan and see how you react.
Bro, it was for me, and I was playing on easy.
Yeah, it's tough. You have to have a pretty good knowledge of the layout. But it's, I found myself playing it again and getting a lot more out of it, feeling like I was, doing well with the systems. Again, this game I found was less about paying attention to what's going on than Metal Gear Solid 1 really wanted you to focus and pay attention. This one is a lot more about freedom of play. You have cardboard boxes, they're way more useful. Sleep darts, obviously, huge addition. Lead shuffling, hold ups. I love holding guards up. That's really fun.
Yeah, I didn't really engage with that part of it.
Yeah. Again, it's about mastering the environmental puzzle. Think on your feet when something catches you off guard. I was amazed how little I cared about the backtracking, because there's a lot of backtracking in this.
A lot of backtracking.
Yeah.
I didn't care about it either.
It was really bizarre. I don't know how. I don't know if it's just fun to move through the areas. It was just so clean and simple. The layout
The areas are
very
very small, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you have to backtrack, typically the guards have not respawned yet, and they're very small. So that's probably what did it. I bet that is more the case than it just being well-designed backtracking. I think it's just each individual area being so small.
And there's little secrets tucked away, too, for you to pay attention to. And it's, it's really fun. In this game, the pacing never falters. This game's pacing is ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. There's something happening all the time. And it's really good. And
that is true.
The only time where it does is very intentional, and that's at the beginning with Raiden, where you're getting re-tutorialized, and it's even more.
We will talk about that. Let's put that one
very
aside for a moment.
Very intentional. There is some trial and error, like there was in the first game. Some of those longer stealth sections can be trial and error. There's a part, my least favorite part in the game, where you have to snipe. While Emma Emmerich is walking across these platforms.
Oh, yeah.
And
I didn't play that. I watched it.
If you miss one mine, if you just don't... And it's so far away. But if you miss one mine, she dies and you have to start the whole section over. Thankfully, when Vamp grabs her, if you accidentally kill her instead of Vamp, or you don't kill Vamp in time, it will just make you redo that section where he grabs her. So that's nice. But
now, you just said something that... really threw a wrench in all of this for me. So I know that the members of Foxhound are a pretty eclectic group. However, what they are not is capital V, I'm from Transylvania, vampire. An actual vampire in this game. What is happening?
That's a great question.
And that's not even the dumbest thing.
No.
He's fine. Just fine. It gets much dumber. Do we want to talk about that right now?
We've gone through the gameplay. This game, again, fun to play. I enjoy it, especially if you're into stealth games. You'll get a lot out of this. So, but yeah, let's go to what the meat of Metal Gear Solid 2 is. Everything.
Campy BS. That's the meat you get that's the amuse-bouche, is campy BS.
Yeah.
All right, it just happens a couple times, but when it does, it is wild. Crazy vampires, dude.
And Tyler, take it away.
Listen, I'm fine with some camp. All right, Vamp really took me aback. I was not anticipating that. And I did have to take a moment to adjust my expectations for what was going to happen here. I did think, even though the Foxhound was a little weird, it was much more serious. Even as crazy as they were, a little more grounded than things are here, at least for the first probably half of the game. Vamp was a little weird. But about halfway through the game, you come upon the third member of, what is this group called?
Dead Cell.
Dead Cell. The third member of Dead Cell, who you have not met up to this point. You have only heard of his grandeur, his mad scheming. You come upon Fat Man. So Fat Man is the bomb expert that has planted bombs all around the facility. And I got to talk about the facility in a minute. Don't let me not. So you come upon the final big bomb that you're supposed to disarm here, spray silly spray on. I don't know.
Spray the fix spray on.
It's silly. But you come upon it, and then in cinematic fashion,
section, though, real quick, I like that because that's part of what makes backtracking fun. Is usually it's recontextualized. You're backtracking for a new purpose, or there's a new objective in the areas. I think that's a good
yes. Anytime you're going to do backtracking, to a large degree, it should be like that. A recontextualization of what you're going through.
Anyway.
But the villain reveals himself to you. He is a very fat man, as his name would imply. Just like Vamp. He's a vampire.
You got it.
You got it, bud. A very fat man in a huge bomb suit. Okay, that's fine. And then he takes a drink of wine through a straw.
A silly straw.
A silly straw, and pours himself some more wine. And as he's coming into frame, you realize he's rollerblading into frame. He rollerblades and does like some I'm a cool kid from the 90s sideways skid to kick dirt in your eyes with his rollerblades.
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
And the boss fight is him drinking
and
wine.
He sounds like an Alice in Wonderland Tea Party character.
He's insane. It is.
Oh, Raiden! Like, it's very.
It's nuts. The whole thing. It's not even just like, kind of campy. It's legitimately stupid. Yeah. Which is fine if that were the whole game. Like, I really think his inclusion is a detriment to everything else it's going for. It gets very serious up to that point, and what is competing for my favorite moment in the game is during this whole encounter with Dead Cell, with the three members of Dead Cell. The third being, so we've talked about Vamp and Fat Man. The third being, I do forget her name.
Fortune?
Her name? Fortune, yeah. And she's Lady Luck, basically. They refer to her as Lady Luck. She has this psychic ability that she can't control to basically dodge any sort of... The bullets sort of, like, warp around her. There's some sort of force field around her, and she wants
Grenades
to die.
Duds when they land in front of her.
She wants to die, but nothing can kill her. And I guess she can't bring herself to kill herself. I'm not sure. But
probably can't.
It's
like Hulk.
Maybe
the other guy spat it out.
Yeah. Oh, good character.
He's really good
character. Yeah. Anyway, I'm fine with the camp. Okay, like Vamp is whatever. Ocelot. I mean, Ocelot's a very silly character. You mentioned Ocelot. Twin Snake. He's nuts. But Fat Man is just taking it for the tone of the rest of the game, both before and after Fat Man. What the hell is he doing there?
Nothing comes close in the rest of the series. I'll tell you that right now. Nothing comes remotely close. In fact,
I'm happy to hear that.
In fact, 3 is probably 3 and 5 are the most serious.
3 has magic fire whales, though.
No, 5 does.
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, 5. I mean, even so, like, in the context of what's going on, it's not silly. It's just kind of like overwhelming. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, Fat Man's inclusion is just bizarre to me. I think it's a terrible choice. I think it discredits, even in the midst of the camp, the tone they're going for before, and it takes a hot minute to get over, moving into the next act of the game.
And that's really where
bizarre.
That's the cutoff where it stops being this facade. After Fat Man, and things start to go. You kind of start to uncover what's going on in the game,
and then eventually fully uncover what's going on, and it is wild.
Wild indeed.
Tell me about it, Zach.
Okay. Well, so up until this point, Raiden has been absolutely insufferable. I mean, whinging, complaining. He's lame. And you don't want to play as him. You're right next to Snake. And Snake is Iroquois Pliskin. He gives himself another name.
Listen, wait. I gotta interrupt you. Iroquois Pliskin. Bro, I love Snake's role in this game.
It's incredible.
And they touch on it in the first game. He's being brought back to, much like Jack Bauer, out of retirement into some sort of mission. Jack Bauer was given up to the Chinese government and arrested, I think, on season 4, and he was in Chinese prison for a long while, and was eventually freed under the pretense that he engages in more anti-terrorism activity, and then gets caught up in all of this again. That's honestly a very fun show, dude. I remember it very fondly. Anyway, so Iroquois Pliskin, or Solid Snake, is a legend in both games. He's been built up as this legendary soldier, and you are, for the majority of the game, except those first 2 hours there, playing a young, still, wet behind the ears soldier replacing Snake, basically.
And he's like Raiden is effeminate, like, in a way that, the typical, Snake is the typical masculine, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, what, standard, like what people look for, the action hero, the masculine action hero. And Raiden is not. Even his suit, like his buttocks, like he's very effeminate, and it's
which they double down on in later games, right? Metal Gear Solid 4, that Colonel, I'm trying to sneak around.
That's Snake's booty, which is...
Yeah, I know, but they double down on that, and just like allowing for the booty.
Oh, yeah, of course, which is the best blessing of all time. But there's this with Raiden, and the way he talks is frustrating, and his problems are stupid.
Yeah.
Like with his girlfriend always calling, like she's your save. Rose is your save call instead of Mei Ling, and it's always this little bickering, and he's just shutting down, and she's just like I don't know. It's very
finding the most inopportune times to be like, remember that argument we had like 2 months ago?
Yeah, like it's very intentionally.
I mean, terrorists are about to launch nukes, but we were supposed to see a movie on Tuesday and you didn't.
Yeah, it's very, very like frustrating to listen to, and the worst part is listening to Raiden talk to Snake. Like Snake's like, it's like, what kind of action have you seen? And he's like, well, I've done, VR training. And he's like, this is your first mission? Well, I've done all of the Shadow Moses in VR. Like, he says it just like that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you piece of garbage, let me play as Snake. Like, Snake is so much better than you. Snake is doing cool things off screen.
Yeah. And being exactly what Snake is.
Yeah, and you are not. You are playing Raiden. And it's frustrating, and I can only imagine how frustrating for someone who thought they were going to be playing Snake. Like, it's so intentional. It's not even one of those things where you're reading into it. Like, this is obviously the intent of the game as you come into these later acts.
Yes, indeed.
It's so good.
I love the role here of Snake. I've talked about that sort of 24 vibe I got, but that aside. Way aside, the fatherly mentor role that he plays here is just so well done, and this is what I meant when talking about the voice acting during the Metal Gear Solid 1 segment. He really comes into his own here, and he's still got some of those cheesy moments, but it's not so much like every time something happens he's like, a glass of beer, like everything's a question. Everything's like, I have never done anything in my life. Terrible Snake voice.
Is oxygen that I'm breathing? Oxygen.
Yeah, it's not so much that anymore. He's a pretty wizened character at this point. And I gotta tell you, listen, I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm gonna be honest with myself. And therefore our audience. Snake, straight up, is a daddy, bro.
He's pretty great.
Got me, as the quote would say, breedable and submissive. I love Snake in this game, dude.
Yeah, this is him at peak Snake too. Like this
is it really in 2? This is the best place.
4 is a deconstruction of Snake. Like, so this is a deconstruction of literally the game itself and Metal Gear 1, Metal Gear Solid 1, and
interesting.
This game. 4 deconstruct Solid Snake.
That's I'm excited to see that. In fact,
it's at its worst when it's just doing Metal Gear plot things, and it's at its very best when it's breaking down Snake, because he's extremely old.
Yeah.
In 4, so like he's aged
when
incredibly
does that take
rapidly.
Place?
Oh, 2000. I forget how far. Not very long after 2 though.
So he just ages really quickly?
Yeah, like, because it's part of the... That's why Solidus in this game looks so much older than Snake and Liquid did. Because he's started to age rapidly. Like, because that's the way they're programmed. When they've reached... After they're done at their peak physical performance, they age rapidly and die.
Oh, okay.
They've been genetically engineered to make that happen. So he's aging super fast. And, he even walks around like an old man in 4. It's great. He just kind of like hunches over and like it's really silly. Like, it's a really silly walking animation, but it fits, and it's even better when you are just, you have so many options in that game, and just ripping through these guys. It's really fun. Because
I've sort of become acclimated with the cutscenes now. I know they get even more egregiously long in 4, but I'm less averse to playing 4 now than I was. And if they're doing anything like 2... Well, I know you've just explained the differences here. But if it's something as engaging as 2, I'm sure I'll appreciate it.
Definitely nowhere near the prescience that 2 has. But it is really, like, all the Snake stuff is really good. And just to kind of deconstruct this guy without deheroizing him, like, which is kind of the trend in literature a lot of the times, is to take someone that has been kind of, like Atticus Finch, someone who's like stood as this beacon of heroism, and just kind of drag them down through the mud. Like, that doesn't happen. It's very much this, not that I'm comparing Solid Snake to Atticus Finch, but that doesn't happen. It's just a deconstruction of Snake, which is cool. But if we're talking about deconstruction, Metal Gear Solid 2 deconstruct the first game and a video game player's experience of a video game from marketing to playing it. Like, all of this gets broken down into its parts as the final sequence starts. You are Raiden. Like, you, the player, are Raiden. Metal Gear Solid is the cage that you've let yourself be trapped by. All of its false expectations about your own reality and what you want out of this vicarious reality of playing a video game. Metal Gear Solid 2 quite literally breaks down, like the game itself breaks down to liberate you and Raiden. Not only individually, but from each other. Like, Raiden becomes his own character, and Kojima is asking you to also become your new character. One of the last things Raiden says is, I'm going to make a new name. He takes the dog tags that have your name on them, and he throws them away, and he says, I'm going to make a new name. You've been separated from each other. And we'll get into, kind of how it does that, but that's what this game is doing. And the moment of Raiden's liberation occurs right here at the end when he's captured, and his backstory comes back up, where Solidus Snake had found him as a child soldier and trained him, and as a child soldier, I ate, what's Raiden say later, like during the cutscene? Yeah, I ate when they fed us gunpowder.
Yeah.
It's like, like.
Well, he doesn't sound like that. That's Snake.
No, you're right, but like, it's very like,
They fed us gunpowder. Which actually sounds terrible. I would not want that either.
Yeah, correct.
But he's a little whiny sometimes.
Yeah, and less so as the game progresses. But
yes,
he's buck naked.
Tolerably so. Yeah. I'd say throughout the whole game, I some of the relationship stuff was, I was not turned off by it. I figured it was gonna go somewhere.
Yeah.
So I was like, what is this? This has to be interesting, or it's got to be used for something. Is what I was really saying. Not it has to be interesting. Sure. Not everything. Fat Man is not interesting.
I think Fat Man's interesting, but so Raiden has literally been declothed. He is now naked. The game has begun its deconstruction of everything now. So Raiden has been stripped of all pretense. Everything that he thought, like all of the mission, it's all gone. He is now both literally and figuratively naked. And you have to run through and find Solid Snake, who gives you your clothes back. You have now been reclothed by one of the liberators. But as you're doing this, the game is fighting back against you. So the GWAI has started to break down. So Colonel is calling you, but he's not Colonel. He's something else, and he's breaking down. He's like, lawn scissors 21. Like, he's just saying random stuff. He'll tell you, like, Raiden, turn the game console off now. Like, like, it's very...
Yeah, and then I asked a question which you didn't really have an answer to. Is the version of Rose, his girlfriend, that you're listening to throughout the game, so in the codec, real or part of the AI? Is she not the same Rose that you see at the end of the game and he inexplicably agrees to go home with? Because at that point I'd be like, nah, I'm going to cut you in half right now.
Yeah. She's I think that the Rose he sees at the end of the game is like, that's the real Rose.
Is the real Rose.
That's the real Rose, and I think she was there. Like, okay, here's the thing.
But she contributes to that video game discussion. She's like, yeah, you shouldn't stare at the screen so long. Yeah, you should turn it off. It's bad for you.
She's obviously part of GW at the end of the game as well. Or the, not GW, but the AI. The what does he call it? The primordial soup brewing beneath the White House.
Oh my goodness.
But I think that at least from a pacing standpoint, and I'm sure the fans have an answer. From what I can gather, what I feel from my gut, I think that the Colonel and Rose are real or at least Rose is real until Fat Man.
Why would she stop being real?
Like, because then it's when it's replaced by the AI. The AI kicks the Colonel and Rose out and starts talking to you directly.
So you think the Colonel is also
because
real?
that's when Ocelot says that the program started. Like, Fat Man was the last test. Even though it's not the program he thought, he's probably onto something. And that's when the game stops feeling so contrived as well. Like, it starts to become a little bit more adventure. And, like, you fight a giant jet. And, like, things start to come together more. You know?
Yeah, I can see that. Okay.
So that's what I think, but I'm not sure. I'm sure that they were just fake the whole time is probably the real answer, but that doesn't explain the ending very well. But it's a Kojima game, so who knows?
Okay.
Who knows? But yeah, like this whole liberation starts to happen, and then as you start fighting through with Snake, who is doing way more damage and has a bigger health bar than you. He literally has like a way bigger health bar than you, just to really hammer it home. And as you're pressing through, the game starts to break down. Game over screens happen, but you're still playing. Like, the game itself is falling apart.
Yeah, where when you get a game over, the screen is basically brought into a thumbnail and put in the top left corner. It says mission failed, and some, silly sci-fi 90s computer screen text just flashes on the screen before you press continue. But here, the same thing happens. The thumbnail goes up, but it's not the death screen. The gameplay is still happening, and the text is breaking up. It's obviously the data is being corrupted, and it says fission mailed.
Yeah,
mission failed.
Yeah, and it's very intentional. Like, the game itself is breaking down because Raiden has started to become his own person, right? Because Snake was, not a part of the plan.
When did you bro? When did you inject GW with the virus? Before or after the naked scene?
Before. Yeah.
So what if, big brain here, okay? What if the fission mailed is not just a swapping of those two words, but literally talking about a split that has now been sent into the system and is taking place right now?
I mean, maybe.
I'm just being
Kojima,
silly.
I mean, honestly, though,
silly.
with Kojima, it's way too easy to read into things, but then realize that half of those things were planned. And you're like, what is going on? This guy's crazy. But so you're going through this, the game itself is breaking down, then you get to the top, and everybody has these twist and backstab moments with each other. Snake dives into the ocean after a full Metal Gear, And,
Yeah, what is that?
And Liquid takes over Ocelot because Liquid's arm has been grabbed by Ocelot.
Oh, yeah, so this is...
Hello, brothers!
More of the camp. This takes place in the very beginning of the game. But Liquid has been preserved, Liquid Snake, because they cut off his arm and replaced Ocelot's arm, which was cut off by the ninja in the first game. So they grafted Liquid Snake's arm onto Ocelot, but his consciousness has been contained within the arm. I've been staying alive in this arm all along,
it's
brother.
So anime. It's so anime.
It's insane.
I love it. But so
You know what's more anime?
Tell me.
Let's back up just a minute.
Oh yeah, we'll get there. We'll retroactively that because we're already on a roll.
Okay.
Let's break down this whole game. So you are now on top, and you're on top of Arsenal gear. Everything's crashing down around you. The simulation is breaking, and you crash into Federal Hall, which was on the day that George Washington was made president of the United States. So George Washington is president on this day. Solidus is talking about how... Because he wants liberation from the Patriots. And the Patriots are this organization of 12 people who run the whole world.
We would know it today as the Deep State.
Yeah. They run the whole world. It's these 12 people. And he's trying to find out who they are so he can stop them and liberate everyone. He wanted it to be done on April 30th, the day that you land here. Because it was the day of liberation for America. And, it's all... Metal Gear's always rooted in U.S.,
Yeah.
U.S. ideas and stuff.
Which is an interesting juxtaposition with the Japanese sensibilities.
It is. That's a really good point. That shows very clearly in every game. And it's really interesting because you come to this moment and, you're kind of like with Solidus. Any warm, red-blooded American is going to be...
Yeah, because just before your fight with Solidus, one of the most incredible cutscenes, which is just a codec call, which are pretty engaging in their own right. A pretty efficient little use of game design, I think. Contextualization of, the story and whatnot. I like the codex, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But you have like a 12-minute codec call with Rose and, well, it's GW at this point, but it's Rose and the Colonel talking to you about, and let's put this into perspective, written in 2002, set in 2009, about the way the government is using programs to track all of human, not history, but current, like social and political development that are not tracked in, as you talked about in the first game, their genes.
Yeah.
There are things that genes do not hold, like culture and ideas and religion. So it is using basically social media. Again, written in 2002, set in 2009. It talks about how the government is using these things to track all of us and has decided, track our development, that is,
and as decided, a species, our development as a species.
Correct. And has decided we are not fit to choose the direction of our development ourselves because we are too feeble-minded. And therefore, the AI is going to do it. And, being a warm-blooded American that he is, right, and is like, and you think you're qualified to make those decisions? Absolutely.
Yeah, they're like, oh, and it's so good. And they dig into, like...
It's powerful, dude!
They dig into, the significance of, what we could do to ourselves with this mass amount of useless... Who else is fit to wade through the garbage that you people produce to find something worthwhile and hand it off and interpret it for you?
Yeah.
Like, it's... Wow. And as
it's I'm going to link it in the video, but definitely give it a watch. Even if you don't play the game, just watch this 12-minute cutscene once again. Written in 2002, set in 2009. This is like the movie Her levels of way more, actually, levels of prophetic rhetoric.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And like the whole idea is the control of the human will and consciousness through. So like they talk about how they've already mapped the human genome 100 years ago. They have that under control, but they can't control this passing on of information, the spread of information. And so using the internet age, they are trying to make a system large enough to be able to catalog, identify, and filter the information, and not just for control. Like all of this entire event was contrived to see if someone would, everything would play out exactly as they wanted. And with this extremely convoluted, ridiculous event modeled off of Shadow Moses specifically to see if it would work, and it did. It was a success. Everything is scripted, and you can control information in such a way to where people will behave exactly as you intend.
Which is everything that you play between ending your scenario in the beginning, the opening with Snake, to beating the Fat Man boss fight.
Yeah.
That section was the test.
And then past that was the deeper test, and they said that was even a success. So you have this idea. So now it's not only making a comment about the real world, it's talking about you as a video game player. It talks about VR is brought up all the time in this game, talking about how, it's a VR mission. How it's basically one step away from being a real soldier, but you're not quite a real soldier. Talking about how close that step is for someone who plays a full VR mission of war, and talking about how you can make as many warriors as you want with a video game, and using Shadow Moses as the model for it. And you are just so Commandant Society, breaking down and commenting on players of these games, specifically of the first game, and what they want out of a sequel, to go through the same beats and, to be told exactly how to play the game, and, all these little things that come into it. And then you, as a person, you who played this game, like, do you just want to be told what to do? What are you going to do with your life? Like, is this just it for you? And it's trying to liberate you in a way. It's really weird. And the whole theme of the Sons of Liberty. Like, and it's crazy because when Raiden beats Solidus and Snake gives him a monologue and he says, honestly, I compare this to Inherent Vice. The ending of Inherent Vice.
Okay.
Because Inherent Vice is a movie about all these people who are trying to control their lives. Just trying to have any amount of control. And the one guy who manages to do one good thing by the end of the movie is the guy who just knows he can't control it. He does what he can, but he knows he can't control it. And that's Snake. Like, Snake says at the end, it doesn't matter if it's real or not. Most of what we call reality is actually fiction. He says, but that doesn't matter. We can't control that. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to pass on? What's worth passing on? Of course you're going to pass on your genes, but what are you going to pass on besides that? What's going to stand past you? What's worthwhile? And it doesn't matter if you're in control or not. It doesn't matter if it's real or not. This is what you have. What you have control. This is what you have. Do something with it. And the best part is at that moment, April 30th, George Washington, liberation from the British, officially. We have our own ruler. That's the day that he sees Rose again. That's the day that he finds her again and decides to make a family with her and decides what he wants to pass on. It's this goofy little cheesy ending, but it's
pretty cheesy.
But it hits harder than it deserves, despite its cheesy writing, because all the things that have lined up, like, he's been liberated because now those shackles, all those weights and those obligations, even just trying to control whether this is real or not, he has this now in front of him, and he's going to pass on what he can and what he finds valuable, even if it's all a lie. He can't control that, and it's really good. It's a fitting end. I love what Snake says near the end. He says, he's talking about our children. Let them read our messy and sad history by its light. Like, what a good line,
Indeed.
Let that information flow. Let it happen. Like, let people learn and grow from it. Let them make mistakes with that information. It's really good, and I really enjoy the. It gave me a new appreciation for Death Stranding too, which I grow to love more and more the further I get from it. Can't wait to play it again.
Play it, man.
Can't wait to play it again. But
I look forward to playing. I didn't. I played very little of it when it came out, and have just. It's been sitting with me like.
Yeah, same thing.
I don't even know why. It's not what I played. It's just you know what it is? It's Donkey's revisiting of it.
I'm so glad that he's come around on that game.
To look at it again, and then I saw a clip on YouTube, just like a little 8-second short on YouTube, and I think it's when you engage multiplayer, you can like call out and say, "Hey, it's what's his name?
Sam.
I forget.
Sam Porter Bridges.
Sam Bridges. Anyway, you're carrying your mother on your back.
Yeah.
And you yell out, "It's Sam!" And it's so faint. But she says, "Don't forget about me." It's very sweet.
Yeah, there's a lot in that game. I will be the first to sleep to its defense. And the first one to say, those of you who hate it are totally right. I get it. I know why you don't like it. I understand. But there's no game like it. The way it plays, the way it makes you feel. In the truest of sense, walking simulator. Yeah. And like just the little micro decisions you have to make, the large macro decisions you have to make, the little creative, wrenches that get thrown in. Kojima's great at that. Just finding ways to throw wrenches in that don't ruin you but make you think and push you. Well, navigating through the BTs, just a really well designed game. I think about it all the time. I've never felt the way that I've felt in Death Stranding.
I watched a lot leading up to the release of that game. I watched so many theories on it, and I still don't know if they're true. I've intentionally stayed away from knowing what exactly is going on. So I know a little bit. I definitely know that the BBs are sort of coming from outside of whatever this is. I don't know if I know, actually. I don't know what the baby is. I don't know why I see Mads Mikkelsen's face as an infant, as a newborn. I don't know what it means to be inside of a womb. These questions have not been answered yet.
Yeah.
But I've intentionally steered clear of those because I still want to know if all of those things are true and it becomes my favorite game of all time.
It won't be your favorite game of all time. There's so much there though. Not only in terms of the story and what it's doing, but what kind of a game it is and what emotions and ideas it triggers in you to be playing that game, the way it makes you think. No other game has ever done those things, and even if one did, it wouldn't do it with such precision. And like, people talk about, oh, look at the world design of Elden Ring or Breath of the Wild, and these, which I'm not discrediting. Both of those are incredible. Like, these massive worlds, Skyrim, look at the details, look at these things. People don't talk about that with Death Stranding. But it is an extremely realistic world with realistic goals and objectives and blockers and challenges.
In bathrooms.
And, like, seriously, the way that the world and the layout of it is designed and how it challenges you when you have different objectives and side objectives and how it's all laid out. And, a big final mission where you have to trek from one end to the other. Like, it delivers, man. It just delivers. Pun intended.
I'm looking forward to it.
Pun very much intended.
Very, very good. I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably pick it up on PS5 sometime sooner than later. That and Demon's Souls I still don't have. Not that I have every PS5 game, but twice as many as you maybe. Anyhow, Death Stranding.
It's good stuff.
Cool.
Yeah,
Kojima. Cool.
I'm a fan. I mean, dude, this hit you just as hard as it hit anyone.
Oh my God, dude! And then immediately, I watched that scene.
You accepted the reality we gave you.
Immediately, I sent that scene to your dad, who is a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, and he watched it. In 12 minutes. Again, I'm going to link it in the video down here. That cutscene. It doesn't matter if you play it, you have enough context. Just know that the Patriots are, what the far right deems to be the deep state. That's what the Patriots are in this game. That's the only context you need for this scene to really say something. So definitely watch it. It's in the description. Anyway, I sent it to your dad, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna watch this right now." And we were setting up for the podcast and immediately called us. It was like, let me tell you about DARPA.
Yeah, I love my dad so much. The DARPA chief, Donald Anderson. Metal Gear.
It's a good game, man. I'm glad we're digging into this. Glad you're finally sharing it. It's going to be hard to top 2, man. I love it.
Yeah.
It's really good.
3 delivers on an emotional sense. Like, this delivers very much an intellectual sense. 3 does very much delivers on the emotional sense. Like, it hits hard. And, I mean, that final... Everyone knows what I'm talking about. That final moment is so beautiful and so good. And then 4 is a lovely mess. A lovely mess. What did the AI guys say? Our beloved monsters, enjoy yourselves.
Oh yeah, good line.
Yeah, it's good. So yeah, that's all I've say about Metal Gear Solid 2. Yeah, so far with the replay ranking, obviously I like 2 better than 1. So we'll see how that holds up as we progress through. Next episode will be Elden Ring. We're a little bit behind, we know, but it's a big game. It's a big game, and we
Yeah, it came out at a weird time for the scheduling, so we decided to move this up. It was supposed to be in place of this episode, but we would have only had like 8 days to play it instead of the full 2 weeks.
not enough.
So yeah, we definitely decided
I've put
to
a
move
lot
things.
of time into it, and I'm still.
You got way more than I do. I'm not even going to worry about. I'm going to tell you right now, I did not finish that game. We're still a week out, but I'm not even going to try to finish it. I'm just going to put as much time into the world as I can. And listen, if you're one of the people, if you're listening here and you're one of those people that think you have to see credits to talk about a game, I'm not going to be rude here. And I'll do my best not to be rude in a conversation. I'd like to be civil, but I'd like to talk to you about it. So hit us up on social media. We'll get you in on the Discord and talk about it. I watched a couple responses to the reviews for Elden Ring. People aren't seeing credits, and the staunch position of not, quote, finishing a game, completely discrediting your opinion of it and your ability to talk critically about it. It's not only that I disagree with you, I literally cannot comprehend the mindset.
I'd
like to talk to you about
devil's advocate. I think there are some games where you just have to. Like Metal Gear Solid 2 is one of them, I think.
That's different. That's different. You're talking about an average of 13 hours. I was an outlier there. I don't know what was going on.
I think you need to get over halfway through the content. I think that's typically the good, because playing as far... some criticisms I had early on in Elden Ring don't matter anymore, and new ones have come in their place that I know are going to stay. So, I think now that I've probably played about 30 hours.
Sure.
Now I've hit the 30 hour
But that's not playing devil's advocate, because some people hold so firmly to that opinion that even what you just said is complete nonsense.
Sure. I mean, that's fine, and they can think that, but I definitely think the more you play it, better for comprehensive discussion, but
sure.
I don't think you need 100% to... That'd be like saying, well, you didn't 100% the game. Like, the logic's the same, because I didn't 100%
you gotta I believe that always. Follow your own logic. Continue it.
Yeah, if
you didn't see every single boss. Maybe there is...
How can you comment on it? Yeah.
What if 120 hours into Arkham City, Mr. Freeze finally showed up? Just because you didn't see Mr. Freeze, you can't talk about that game at all? And it's an optional boss 120 hours into the game? I'm making that up. That's not the case. Because it's not that kind of game, but that would be silly to say that people can't talk about the open world, the structure of the side quests, being that sort of episodic gameplay, but in a side quest, just the claustrophobia of the open world. None of that comes with seeing credits. That comes with being in the world, and I think playing Pokemon last week for our last episode is a perfect example. I put more time into it than Zack did, and I was only in the third area of 5?
I don't remember.
Okay, I think it's 5 areas. Maybe I was in the fourth.
5. Yeah, 5.
So let's say 3 of 5. He saw credits. I did not. I put more time into it, not because I fell asleep and the game was left on or whatever. I was engaged with the mechanics. I know that you get a flying person, a flying Pokemon in the 4th area that lets you fly around. Sure. I know you get a Sneasel that lets you climb stuff. I get that. I don't need those things. I don't need to play those things myself to be able to talk about the loop of the new direction for Pokemon after playing it for 40 hours or 35 or whatever I played it. I don't get the argument. I literally don't get it. But that's a huge aside. Anyway, next episode is Elden Ring. I will not be finishing it. I am just going to play as much as I can and have fun with it and not beat my head against a wall trying to, mainline the game. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not a game you can really do that. Like, if you just try to push the bosses, like the main bosses, like they're so tough. Like, you're meant to explore and find good loot.
And if you set me out to explore, I'm gonna do it. dude. Gonna spend a lot of time doing that.
All right. Well, that was it. I think we did a good job, my friend.
Dude, I'm so excited to continue this series. I don't think it's going to top anything else is going to top this for me. It's going to be hard in terms of narrative. Gameplay is obviously going to be better. I already said.
Yeah, 2's my favorite.
I don't
2's
like
my
it very
second
much.
favorite narrative. Yeah, after 3. 3 is just so clean. It's built to be a narrative, and it's not this postmodern. It's just a narrative, like a really strong one. So,
and it helps that it's basically a prequel to everything, right?
yeah. It's the earliest of any of the games.
Yeah, that's going to help as well, just to sort of set itself apart from everything else.
Oh yeah, dude, jungle setting, like it's great. It's a great
and in
space.
third person, because we'll be playing the subsistence version. Do you know if the initial release is included in the
I don't think it is.
Legacy Collection?
Don't think it is.
Okay. Well, excited to dig into it. We've got Elden Ring coming up, and then before we jump into Metal Gear Solid 3, we are also starting another series that we'll be swapping back and forth between with Mass Effect.
The Mass Effect.
But, folks, if you like what you have heard here, please be aware that to keep the lights on, we would appreciate a little bit kicked our way. We do have a Patreon live that is updated with the new episodes, but the $2 tier on Patreon, which I do believe is the only tier on Patreon, gets you into our Discord, where you can come find multiplayer games. Next week, we will be playing, well, I guess this week, when this episode goes live, we'll be playing the DLC for, what's it called? Risk of Rain 2. Going to be jumping into that finally. Very excited. If you just want to get a party together for Elden Ring, you can find that there in the Unpatched Gaming Discord. And come have those sort of conversations. What are some of your favorite moments in Metal Gear Solid? Mine, I actually didn't talk about it aside from that.
Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about it.
There are two things. Quick aside here. We're going to pause on this whole thing. I did not talk about these two things. One, Fortune. I like Fortune a lot. And her initial cutscene where she is introduced is so good.
And that music.
The music playing, just the somber tone of everything she's saying. Oh, it's so good. And you mentioned initially, it was one of the first things you mentioned, and I was going to save it and then forgot. The colors in this game are incredible. And it's like 4 colors in the whole game. But, you got the blue of the ocean, the sort of gray of the ocean meets sky, and then you've got the orange of the entire big shell facility, which, in aside, I like the constant use of simple words like big boss, solid snake, big shell. I like all that. But this is... someone spent hours searching through every single number on, I don't know what it's called, but like the color wheel, when you select a color, it has coordinates that you can like copy and paste those coordinates, whatever that's called. Someone spent hours searching through every single combination of the range of coral to find the one that even on the PlayStation 2, without any sort of, really high definition textures, found what could be nothing else than bright, luscious coral beaten with sand or salt wind. It looks exactly like that because that's exactly what it is. It's out in the middle of the ocean, just being ravished by the salty wind of being in the middle of the ocean. And it's the entire game has that sort of, it's not a filter that's on top of it. It just, every color has that in mind when being chosen. Don't forget, you're in the middle of the ocean. There's salt everywhere. It's good. But come talk about this stuff on Discord, $2 tier on Patreon. Thank you so much for joining us and jumping into one of the greatest game series ever. Zach will tell you.
Yeah.
I can't actually say that honestly yet. And do not forget, folks, please don't forget to share what you love, with who you love.